Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 63.
Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast with your host, Jack Mountain Bushcraft School founder and Master Main Guide, Tim Smith.
I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm a registered Master Main Guide, and in 1999 I founded the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School. We help people become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more confident outdoors by using traditional skills, a few simple tools, and field-based experience. Whether you're looking to go from city slicker to competent outdoor professional, want to experience a remote expedition, or just want to learn a few new outdoor skills, we've got you covered. You can check out the show notes to this and all of our podcasts at blog.jackmtn.com. When you're there, click on the podcast button. And if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. Lastly, the best way to keep up with our programs and trips is to join our email newsletter, and you can do that at jmbnews.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 63. It's another cold, windy morning here in northern Maine.
No.
It is Wednesday, May 22nd. The Masardis Glacier is still going strong up at the top of the hill, and it'll be June before that thing is gone this year.
Last night I actually saw a couple of stellar sea lions on that glacier.
Well, maybe we'll share that story later in the podcast. So I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm here with Christopher Russell in the Guide Shack, joined by all of the participants on the spring 2019 Wilderness Bushcraft Semester. Woo! Some of whom have elected to remain silent and just watch the pageantry of the podcast. Beautiful. And others who you will be hearing from. You'll be hearing from Jeremy Marcotte. How you doing, Jeremy?
I am fantastic this morning, even though it's cold and kind of meh.
Jeremy is an old Jack Mountain, old hand, canoe expedition last summer, snowshoe expedition last winter.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to maximize his time here in the county.
Damn right.
What's wrong with you?
I love the woods. I would rather be up here than sitting in the city pulling my hair out, that constant commute to work. I'd rather my commute be a canoe or walking with a pack on my back.
You gotta harness a moose.
I'm working
That's
on
the
that
answer.
one. There's a moose!
Exactly.
And we're going to catch one, and we're going to ride it, and it's going to be glorious.
That's what
As
we
I
all
put
do
out my
up here.
bastard
Didn't you guys
sword,
know that?
And I swing it wildly.
But before we do that, we'll get as much intelligence from him as we can.
Yes.
Because they know some stuff.
They're coming down from Canada.
Illegal border crossing. And directly to my right, Anthony, how are we doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. And then Christopher is here with us, and then
only in body, not in spirit.
We're in the underground communications layer of the Guide Shack, and we've got the 653 participants on the spring semester in the auditorium.
What?
No?
What world are you? What color's the sky in your world, Tim?
I don't know. Yeah, so we just want to have a quick conversation this morning about sort of the checking in with these guys, the realities of living outdoors, how it measures up or compares sort of with the fantasy that a lot of people have, and just to kind of get their perspective on things. So, yeah, so middle of week 4, 4 weeks of living outdoors, 4 weeks of cooking on fires and living in shelters. And, I'm just curious, just in general, if there's a sort of feeling you get of what you thought living outdoors in northern Maine this time of year would be like, and then, how the reality of being up here and actually doing it, if the two sort of meet in the middle, or if maybe the fantasy is drastically different than the reality.
You want to field this one first?
Sure. Yeah, I had this idea that I was going to come up here, we'd make coffee over the fire, we'd cook our dinner. It was going to be cold, but not cold and miserable, and wet and rainy. And I didn't realize how much work it is just to cut your wood every day to make your fire, and to try and make your fire after all your wood that you cut has soaked up moisture overnight. And, in order to have that cup of coffee in the morning, it's like almost an hour process by the time we get the fire started and we get the coffee boiled. So a lot more work than I thought it would be, but it's a lot of fun.
For me, so far living in the shelter has been so much better than sleeping on the ground in the
It's like
tent.
the Taj Mahal.
Oh, it is. It's so much better. I have more space. My bed is so much more comfortable than the ground. I'm sleeping a lot warmer. You know, I got this snot in my head right now from allergy season, but, you know, potato.
What did you just say?
That's right, I said it.
Oh my.
Potato. Bring out the guns! Anyways,
Get him, boys!
Just inside joke here. Aroostook County, where we are, is the #1 potato-producing county in the United States of America. And I tell everybody who comes on the course here that you can say tomato or tomato, but there's only potato here. There's no potato. Right? So you
We
take
need
it back.
Jack Mountain
Okay, I
Bushcraft
take it
Mr.
back.
Potato Head.
I look like Tim.
Yes.
Big orange hat. That'd
Yep.
be funny.
As our mascot.
Cletus teeth.
These guys have
Can you enunciate that better, please?
It's been fantastic, though. I mean, I love being up here. This being the third time that I've come up and enjoyed being here at Tim's place. It's been friggin' awesome. The only thing that I've seen that I would say is more, not so much the romanticization of it, but it's just the reality check. Oh, sorry. The reality check behind it all is you do get a little loopy after a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we went out last night for Taco Tuesday, and it was a mess. It was just laughing over the
They're
most...
not going to let us back in there.
No,
There's no way.
No, there's no way. I mean, just the jokes and just everything was not something you would find anywhere else. And this is where I'd rather be, is laughing about stuff that makes people uncomfortable because it's funnier.
Well, what I do find on all of these courses is that as you guys are here together for a while, we sort of, and every semester it's a little different, but you guys build your own little sort of insular culture because you guys are, I mean, that's what you guys are doing. You're living together as a group and building this little thing. And then as soon as that, like, culture is transplanted into, like, I don't know, a Mexican restaurant, maybe, it doesn't go over. Like, I mean, nothing bad happened, but it was just...
It was hard not to tell any off-color jokes last night.
Yeah, it was very apparent that we'd been living in the woods for a month.
Yep.
But it is your I mean, this is your classic, like, team building, rite of passage, anthropological model, right?
Yeah.
Where you get separated from the main group of society, put into a challenging situation where, like, for example, you guys cooking over the fire, you're working together to achieve certain goals, right? That would be much more difficult to do yourselves. And then we reintroduce you back into the world. So you've created this kind of really strong little microculture, you know, based around your experience on the course.
Yeah.
And yeah. But people, we do get a little loopy up here. I think long-time listeners of this podcast could probably tell, like, they wonder, like, what sort of reality do these people live in where, you know, they're just joking about all these things that are, you know, maybe not funny at all to anybody else. But yeah, you know, life in the woods, living remote, living a little rough. The humor is at a premium.
Yeah,
you know,
you take the fun where you can get it.
It helps with the soft skills, though, because a lot of people don't know how to find their way into those soft skill moments, and then somebody cracks a joke, and it's like, oh, okay, I can relax now and just say what's on my mind without any judgment, because I think that's what a lot of people are not getting in the real world, is they're constantly being judged for the things that they say, and it's like, look, I don't mean that the way that you think I do. Out here, you don't have anything else to dictate, you know, that kind of stuff, so you have a chance to really express what's going on in your head, and you get to have fun with it.
And it's scary. So
Well, that statement you just made, Jeremy,
Sometimes
I'm
it's
highly
scary.
offended by the statement you just made, actually.
Well, good.
I've said...
You could be more inappropriate than the next guy.
I've said on record publicly in the past, I think it was public, that I don't think that people should judge one another unless you work as a judge. Because then if you didn't judge people, you'd lose your job. And you'd be homeless under the bridge living in like a refrigerator box.
Wait. So you're saying if you stop judging people, you end up as a homeless person? So
No,
basically-
if you-
let me think.
if you're a judge.
I get that. But what I'm reading from that is that if you are a judge and you stop judging, you end up as a homeless person living under a bridge. So the metaphor that we've just created is that if you stop judging people, you basically end up as a Jack Mountain student. As soon as you get over your judgment, you become
I'm
a
not
homeless
homeless.
person
You should
living
see
in the
my
North
shelter.
Maine woods.
Oh, yeah.
First of
My
all, it's
shelter's
not
the
home free.
bomb.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
home
it's
free.
not homeless,
That's
it's
right.
home free.
I made a faux pas.
I'm a free-range Jack Bush Mountain person.
But yeah, if
Free
you're a
ranging.
judge, I mean it's a little point, and I'm feeling a little nitpicky. But if you're a judge and you stop judging people, you're going to lose your job.
Right.
Right. That's what you get paid to do. So, but if you're not a judge, maybe you shouldn't judge people, or anything.
It's a little bit of a judgment call on your part, but okay.
Food contest.
But yeah, we get those weird. It's an interesting culture that develops here. As Christopher said, each course is a little bit different, but all from my perspective, hilariously fun. And that doesn't mean, for those of you listening, it doesn't mean that everything here is easy. There are definitely tense or tight moments, but humor is kind of the lubrication that we use to work through some of those challenging moments.
Chris has given us the hand signals.
Don't
Do not say
touch
anything
that
inappropriate.
Don't touch that one.
I was just going to say communication is lubrication. That's what I've heard.
That's pretty good. I like
Yeah,
that.
yep.
It
just makes things
that
slide.
That
in
came
so
from
much-
Sex with Emily. Her podcast,
I kept
not
it,
with
I kept
Emily.
it PG-13-ish.
I guess we're gonna have to click the explicit.
You're going to have to get over that. I don't know any Emilys. No, that's her podcast.
Cool. So yeah, you mentioned, Anthony, that, and it's something that we talk a lot about here, is that really the only engine that you have to get anything done here is your body, right? Like at home, living in the modern world, if I want to cut up a piece of wood, there's a power tool for that. If I wanted to do basically anything, there's a power tool for that. Or there's something with a little motor in it to get it done. Here, you've got your axe, your knife, and that's just about it.
The only thing I miss out of my modern conveniences are warm showers, and I'm very grateful for Mr. Maytag. I did not like doing my wash in a bucket
Wait,
and
that
hanging it
word
up.
you used.
Maytag, wash?
Wash?
Wash, yes.
Wash.
Because I did not
Laundry.
want to
I don't
smell like
understand.
the south end of a northbound horse anymore.
I don't understand what we're talking about at all.
I don't know either.
Doing laundry in a bucket with the plunger.
Laundry.
Tell me more about this laundry.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
the
we
thing
have
that
things to
scared me
learn
was
from
I had to
you
do my
guys.
laundry in a round bucket, and that kind of made me nervous.
Yeah, well, for good reason.
That will.
For good reason.
That's why I don't do it.
So yeah, I mean, it's and that's part of, I think, a lot. That's part of what's romanticized dramatically by the sort of modern world. If you're working in an office on the 50th floor of a high-rise in Hong Kong or somewhere, it'd be easy to romanticize kind of the woods life, the self-reliant, the more freedom involved. But then when you come out and do it, you realize that, yes, there is that inherent freedom involved, but there's also I don't have all day to sit around, because just to do the things that take me 10 minutes in a modern home can eat up most of the day. Like to get firewood, to be able to cook your food, and maybe to warm up water, to take a bath, or to do your laundry. Like if you cooked 3 meals a day on an open fire, did a load of laundry, cleaned up a little bit, cleaned your house or whatever, those things maybe take you a half hour at home, but here that's a full day. Because there's no labor-saving devices. And I think there's a lot of great outcomes with that, but it's also can be very challenging, and definitely very challenging physically. I think, would I be correct in assuming that, while you guys aren't completely beat up physically, at the end of the day, just a regular day around here, you're kind of tired, you're ready to sleep.
I'd rather be
About 8
tired at
o'clock.
the end of the day here than be tired after a 8-hour day at work, because here I'm working to live. I'm not living to work. I'm putting in the effort. I can look at something at the end of the day and say, I did that, versus, oh, okay, I get home. Oh, how was your day at work, honey? Well, I wanted to punch my boss in the throat, but, you can't do that. I didn't accomplish much, but out here I chopped a cord of wood, and I cooked over a fire, and I poled up river. It was great. I took a swim in the river because I jammed my pole the wrong way and flipped the canoe. It was awesome.
No. You jumped in the water, sacrificing yourself looking for trout.
I like that better.
Yeah.
Use
Marketing's everything,
use
man.
my example as a way of not doing something. Let
You
my
need to come up
pain
with one
be your
in your
knowledge.
teeth out of an
Yes.
impressed.
I was like
So,
a bear.
I
If
think
anybody would come out of the water with a fish in their teeth, it would be Jeremy.
Probably.
I wouldn't
I've been
bat
eating
an eye.
eggs with the shell on them.
Yeah,
So, I mean, why
so-
not?
We've got a gag there, like
I
get a
would
dead
say-
fish in your pocket for when you come out of the canoe, jump in the water, and come up with it in your mouth. We got to get that on video.
Okay,
I'll do it.
Done.
I'll do it.
If we've given it away, does the gag still work?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a visual gag.
Eggs.
What were you going to say?
I would just say that the difference that I feel at the end of the day is when I go to bed at night, I'm physically tired from having worked all day. When I'm at home and I come home from work and I'm ready for bed, it's because I have been mentally and physically and emotionally like just beat down by the grind of the day.
Yeah.
You know, so I go to bed and I'm tired because my brain needs a rest. Here, my body needs a rest, and it's a much different level of tiredness, and it feels better. It feels better than going to bed at night after work because you're exhausted because you just literally got beat down by every person and everything that you interacted with that day. You know, because they had problems or there was this and you had to fix that and you had to do this. Here, it's just physical work, and you know it requires some know-how to do it. And some skill, but it's just a physical tiredness.
Out of curiosity, do you find that with the mental tiredness, do you fall asleep quicker with the physical tiredness, or and with the mental one, do you kind of like lay awake and think about the day?
Well,
and
yeah,
then-
with the mental one, you know, I can toss and turn.
Yeah.
And with this physical tiredness, yeah, I barely remember putting my head down on the
Exactly.
pillow.
It's a good feeling,
I mean,
right?
literally, my head goes down and I'm out. Yeah.
We should side business do this for people who have trouble sleeping. Come up here, just
Yep.
work them like rented mules all day.
There you go.
Make them sleep on the gravel.
I've
And
got
they're like, I've never had a better
ideas
night's
for the
sleep.
business aspect of travel. And you get in pretty good shape too, and that's something a lot of people are missing in your everyday world is, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and throw weights. Well, here's a better idea. Come up here for a few hours, swing an axe and, you know, split your wood and all that stuff. You're throwing a 3.5 pound axe for an hour. That's a damn good workout. Your abs, your arms, your back, your legs, you know, you're out pulling upstream, downstream, whatever the case is, you're getting a fantastic full body workout. It is amazing. And a lot of
Yeah,
people miss that. Plus, you're eating better, too.
Well, unless it's a hard-boiled egg with a shell on.
Right.
The shell gives you
So
calcium.
we've reached about the halfway point in the course.
Wow, the halfway.
And
Oh,
usually at about the halfway point, you start to see signs that people have been removed from the necessities and sort of niceties of modern world. And the other day, Tim was out of town, and I walked up the hill for lunch and walked up on our good friend Jeremy here eating a hard-boiled egg, shell and all. And it was
good.
the grossest sound I've ever heard in my life. The crunch of an eggshell and the squish of a hard-boiled egg is
Yep.
pretty awful.
He looked like a monitor lizard.
Yeah.
But it was good. The extra crunch. I like corn nuts, so that kind of coincides. You know?
Have you thought
Corn
about
nuts.
hard-boiling a bunch of eggs and dyeing them to the same color as corn nuts, and then they
There
could
you
be
go.
like your giant corn nuts?
Giant corn nuts.
Ooh.
Well, that's going to happen today.
Yes, it is.
Well, now.
I'll use the dandelions for the yellow coloring and everything else.
Lovely.
Yes. See,
That's
there's ways to
freaking
do it.
bushcraft, man.
Got to be innovative up here. Sometimes you don't have all the things you want, like food dyes and stuff. So use plants.
I've never up here once in my life wanted food dyes, but now I do.
Damn it.
I think there's one thing that's missing from like a rustic woods lifestyle. It's, you know, excessive food chemicals.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good for you guys. I just ordered a truckload of them. They're going to be here like tomorrow night. So we can just start, you know, experimenting with everything.
Hey,
Can we put them in
make
the
rainbow
groundwater
trout,
too,
right?
so we can drink
Like
that?
3 55-gallon metal drums of powdered MSG. It's going in everything.
We're gonna be bloated for the rest of the month.
And it'll be glorious.
It'll be wonderful.
So you have
So-
to empty those buckets.
Yeah. So we're talking about, we're talking about physical work here, and I'd be curious to see. I know Jeremy, you had carpentry experience before you came up, but I'm curious to see and hear about your guys' experience with the hand tools, with using, because that's something that I think is pretty unique to what we do up here. Is that you're making a lot of the stuff that you're using, and I'd love to hear a little about that.
And I always like to frame these reflective discussions. 2 things you like about them, 1 thing you hate about them. So
2 things
two
I
things
like.
you like, 1 thing you don't like. And that could be like, I like the draw knife and I hate the spoke shave, but I love the rasp. Or
Because he likes the coffee, but he hates
It's
the
the tea.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's see.
Chris is still confused over that.
It's okay.
At this point in the course, I'm just perpetually at a state of being confused.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
With carpentry, I mean, I was doing framing, and we had the compressors and the pneumatics and everything else, so everything was a lot faster. With this, it's more intimate and detail-oriented. Even though some of these projects, they're small and you can knock them out in 15 minutes or less, you know, I like taking my time and actually working the wood. So with the spoke shave, with the draw knife, once I got all of that stuff organized and situated to where it was a sharp blade and everything else, I love working with those tools. I feel more as a craftsman than anything else when I'm like shaving those nice curlies off of a piece of wood or working with... Well, it was with the paddle. I finally got that spoke shave just right, and it's like you get that nice little curly cue, and you like...
Of wood, yes. It was very nice.
And then you take it and you throw it in the fire, and it's like pixie dust. It's awesome. But, so with the tools, the one thing I didn't like with the spoke shave was the adjustments, because that was that spot where it was like, I want to throw this thing across the pond. And you can't do that, because if you do, then you have to make one out of your knife and a stick. And that was fun. But I'd rather not. I mean, I spent some money on this tool. I want to learn how to use it the right way. And once I finally got it, it was worth it. So the hand tools, you got to enjoy the craft side of it. Because if you don't, you're just wasting your time and your money.
So my personal motto is fixing things beyond repair. Since 1969, I have zero skill in making things or fixing things if it's not my chosen profession. And so any of these crafts are really tough for me. The only craft I ever did before this was I made a golden angel out of a tampon and a maxi pad for Christmas and gave it to somebody. It was awesome. So that was as crafty as I got. And anyhow, so that was the golden tampon award of the year. So anyway, I really liked working with the woodcraft with the wood tools, because it gave me a sense of accomplishment as I work with them. I like to work with my hands, kind of from what I do in my full-time job. And so learning how to do some woodworking, but learning how to do it without power tools and do it with hand tools, to me, just kind of connected me to that project a little bit more. And the thing that I didn't like about it was I have a really hard time looking at a block of wood and imagining what it's going to look like when I'm done with it. So I have a really hard time taking it from concept to product. But that was also the most gratifying thing, was at the end looking at the thing and just thanking God that it didn't look like the moose mallet or some of the other ones that you showed.
Every podcast, that stupid thing comes up.
Thanks,
but,
Kieran.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kieran. You're an
Sorry,
endless
buddy.
source of entertainment. He's never even met you. And he
sorry,
knows.
man. It very easily could have been me. And So yeah, but I mean, then looking at it when it was all finished and having the satisfaction of saying, gee, I did this with basically 2 tools, well, 3 tools: my axe, my spoke shave, and my draw knife. I guess the other thing I didn't like about it is certainly trying to adjust that little spoke shave. I hate to sharpen the tools. I'm just always afraid I'm going to screw up the edges on them. They're going to work worse, that sort of thing. But yeah, a lot of satisfaction at being able to look at that and say, hey, I made a paddle out of basically a board.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and I think that's those are great insights into the process there. So yeah, thanks for those. I guess lastly, one last thing I'd like to just hear you guys take on is academic work here. I think people often think about living outdoors, bushcraft, and they think it's just swinging an axe, right? It's just all hands-on. But we have a pretty significant academic component here about learning natural history, doing background studies and things. And how has that been going for you?
I mean, I spent more years in college than I wanted to, and I feel like I'm back in college as I'm going through some of it. The difference is this time I'm actually kind of interested in what I'm doing. So, but I didn't expect that. I didn't expect the academic side of things that you guys have. I just kind of expected, like I said, to come here. Oh, I'm going to live outdoors. I'm going to learn how to make fire. And, every time I go to light that fire, it's going to be lit and my coffee's going to be boiled and my food's going to be cooked and I'm doing great. And did not expect the other layer of information on top of that. And now I'm starting to realize, you keep saying we're teaching you a process so that wherever you go, you can implement this. And, at first it just kind of sounded like words until I really started thinking about it. I'm like, when I go back home to Pennsylvania, a different ecosystem, but now if I can get the right books and the right information, I can sit down and I can replicate these things. And it's going to be a little harder because I'm not going to have somebody there to point out and say, that's an aspen tree. I'm going to need to figure out that this is a red oak or this is a white oak or this is this kind of tree. And then I can go and do research on it and better understand how to use that in my own environment. Same thing with the animals and plants and that sort of thing. So definitely a much better process than what I was using. And some things I'd like to bring home to some other courses that I'm involved with now, like pressing plants. Like I'm doing a wild foraging course. It'd be great to press plants because for a guy like me, we go and people look at these plants and they're like, oh, I know what this is and I know what that is. And I'd like to have it pressed and be able to go home and look at it and say, okay, now I know about this plant. And when I see it again, I'm going to know it's this plant.
Well, yeah, that's the beauty of the plant stuff is that you guys are building your own personal field guide. That's not just information that somebody else collected. It's your actual experience with that.
And
plant.
I'm a real slow learner.
Yeah.
So stuff like that's great for me because I'm just slow catching on sometimes. You know that, so. Well,
that's not what I meant. No, but I think I'm the same. I understand what you mean because if I don't look at something like 3 different ways, I don't really understand it. And having that process where I'm looking at it in the field and then I'm researching it and then I'm writing it down and recording it, that's where that information really sits home for me. Right. So I totally know what you mean.
Yeah, I learned by a combination of lecture and then doing kind of thing. That's always been, that's the way I've learned best is I sit down, I get the academic, and then I go and I do.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same boat as I'd rather be out there hands-on learning and then do some of the academics after the fact or even before the fact and then going out and doing it because it's going to sit a lot better in my head.
Well, it's like fertile ground at that point, right?
It's not just words on a board and somebody going, oh, and here's this and here's that.
We can do that if you want.
That's actually how I learn is by really boring PowerPoints with someone talking with a monotone. Yeah. That's the only way I can learn.
I did that for way too many years. I don't want to go back to it.
What we're actually doing with this podcast is Tim and I are going to go back and listen to it and make a PowerPoint about the podcast and present it to you guys tomorrow morning.
There you go. That'd be fun.
I will cut my eyes out.
Like one of my biggest issues biggest difficulties is, we'll go out and we'll do a field walk and Tim will be kind of rattling off about this plant or this tree, and I'm so busy trying to write it down because that academic side of me, rather than just sitting there and listening to the information you're telling us. So then I feel like, oh, what'd you say? I just missed that, because I'm so busy writing, trying to get it down. And that's just a learning style, I think, more than anything. But
the academic side, though, with this whole course, it's practical knowledge versus just book smarts. We've seen people come through courses and they're wicked super smart with the books, but they have no street smarts or practical application of what they've just read. And this brings the two together. It's, okay, so here's the plant. Here's the books that we recommend that you research this plant. Or here's the animals that are up in this area, pick 5 of them and do some research. Look for their tracks. I mean, we've seen moose. We've seen mink.
Yep.
You guys saw the mink?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Ran right across.
Red squirrels.
Moose Vegas Road.
There's the beaver dam and,
Stellar sea lions.
Stellar
yes. That orchid that breached in the pond the other day while we were working on our netting needles. Yep. Tim saw it.
And when you bring it all together, it just makes everything sit so much stronger in that knowledge bank of your brain. It's just, oh, okay, now I can go out and I know that's going to be a trout because this trout is this long and it's got this many spines on its dorsal fin and it likes cooler water versus hot water and this, that, and the other. It's like, now I can go catch fish all day long because I know where they like to be. I can't catch a fish to save my life. Now I might actually stand a chance. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we still need to figure that out.
So
we know a lot about these animals. Let's see if we
academics-
can actually get one on the hook.
What was the old saying that if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, you've shown him how to drink more beer?
I think that was right.
I like
that was
that.
definitely
Something
right.
like that. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
That was definitely it.
Yeah, so I mean, to take the academics and put it to actual work versus what they normally teach you in a college setting, whereas it's just mostly theory, it definitely resonates a lot more with me, at least.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Benjamin Franklin who said that beer was proof that God loves us or something
and
like
wants
that?
us to be happy. He did
Yeah,
say
I believe
that.
so, yes.
He's a very interesting guy if you study Benjamin Franklin, because he wrote his autobiography, right, with all of the things. Here are the
Before
tenets
the internet?
Here are the tenets that I live by, and it was like chastity, sobriety, and then during the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, 1789, lecherous old drunk would be carried from one bar to another by some of the other attendees, where he would prey on the young women there. So interesting, like, do as I say, not as I do, right?
Yeah.
But I guess he wrote his autobiography as a young man, and it was probably instrumental in him becoming a very influential person. And then as an
Turned
older
into a
guy,
dirty
he's
So he was a true politician, is what you're
Yeah,
telling us.
exactly.
true politician.
Founding
finally
fathers
found out.
were exactly
That's
the way
right.
they are now.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Looking like they're living a life of piety. Well, in the background, when we can get
Yeah.
the camera on you.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, any other sort of observations about the course before we wrap this up? We're getting to the point we do in every podcast where we're starting to...
Yeah, the group dynamic is awesome.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. We have a really good group. We all get along real well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key factors too. Is once you figure out
We all
who's
love
who-
us some Xander.
Yeah, even though he's not speaking, you should use Russian voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
he's giving me the
No.
death glare.
Group dynamics are huge.
Yeah.
People are getting along. It's a pleasure to be here. If everybody was arguing and fighting, it would be like, hey, let's do like another 5 days of solo time or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
an interesting
No,
thing.
we've had some really good meals, too. Boy, these guys are some good cooks.
Yeah.
I got to tell you.
Well, it's an interesting thing with the group dynamic is that, like you said, I've been on courses with a bad group dynamic, but for the most part, because of the work that we're doing here, the group dynamic is always relatively good because people are it doesn't matter. There's a lot of different backgrounds that end up here, but just because of what you're doing, everybody tends to get along pretty well because you have to.
It's
just
the
the
stories
reality.
too. I mean, everybody loves a good story.
Yeah.
And
Well,
when
I've
we're-
got a story for you guys actually involving stellar sea lions, which I will tell
Oh, yes,
as the
yes.
wrap up to this podcast.
Let us
So
know.
stay tuned, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everybody's got a good story, and when we're sitting around the fire, that romanticized part of being out in the woods,
Yeah.
we're all sitting
There's
around
no
telling
romance going on
stories.
around that fire.
No.
It's more
no.
of a bromance.
It's a bromance. We might go with a bromance.
We're netting, we're
Very
we're,
testosterone.
we're doing knitting,
semester
we're,
right now.
we're
That's right.
spinning cord, we're doing that kind of fun stuff, but we're telling stories and we're laughing and we're having a good time, or we'll get serious.
We're making
about
inappropriate
some things.
jokes.
Yeah. Well, what did we describe it as the other day? It was a bearded, smelly knitting club. Was essentially what
Yes.
we
Yeah.
become at the end of the day. We're all stinky, sitting around the fire, working on a little handcraft and talking about the day.
I just want to know, do even the women, when they come out here, grow beards also?
if they try hard enough.
They try hard enough, okay.
It's an
Can't-
interesting
can't
point,
say
though, that
what kind of beard though.
in our modern world where everybody is so polarized and so angry all the time that I think if you give people good, meaningful work to do during the day, and they tend to get along. And in the long run, to quote our good friend Ben Spencer, in the long run, the only survival skill that really matters is our ability to get along.
It's funny that guy says that and his nickname is Bonobo.
Yeah.
Love you, Ben.
Why is that funny?
Well, because bonobos tend to get along as a social group.
There you go.
And
Yeah,
our
quite
friend,
well.
Are
our
they
friend
monkeys or
Bonobo-
apes?
I don't care anymore.
You don't care anymore, okay.
I'm over it.
But yeah, so it's that interesting thing about, everywhere you go, if you turn on the radio, everybody's button heads, arguing, fighting, everybody can't see the world from anybody else's perspective, and yet here we get people from, a really wide variety of backgrounds, and you just tend to get along, right? And I don't know. I wish there was more of that in the world these days, and less people bickering and arguing.
That's where this kind of course comes into play. Is this gives people that chance to really reconnect with people because they're not constantly on their phones, not constantly connected to the social media aspect of life. You are out in the woods with a group of strangers, and you have to make it work.
Yeah, you're pulled out of that echo chamber that most of us exist in with social media.
And that's another reason why I love being out here more so than being back in the city aspect, is because out here I am forced to communicate, where I am not a really big people person in the city aspect, but out here, I love you guys.
But when you're dumping another guy's bucket, man, you get to know.
Yes, you do.
You get to appreciate those guys a whole lot.
Damn, this thing's like spiraling the bowl. It's just not right.
Yeah, we definitely clicked the old explicit button.
We just digressed there.
Definitely passed the line about 20 minutes ago.
I was okay with the dumping another guy's bucket.
So we brought it up. Let's talk about that then, and then we'll wrap it up. But experiences now 4 weeks in. We have a humanure composting system here where we take everybody's poop and pee and throw it on the compost pile and layer it with hay. And a lot of people think that's kind of gross. I've been doing it for 25 years. I don't think it's gross, or it's no grosser than anything else.
Explain we are not pooping in the compost pile.
No, we have regular outhouses with toilet boxes, and if nobody told you, you might not notice any difference from like a regular outhouse or toilet.
There's no smell. I mean, this is my third time up here. I haven't had any problems with any smells coming out of these bathrooms at all. Just make sure you put your wood shavings down when you're done. If it gets full, empty the bucket, clean it, put a clean bucket in, make sure there's wood shavings, and call it good.
Yeah.
I think it works great. I mean, I've been my job takes me in some really, really gross houses with some really gross bathrooms. I would much rather poop in a round bucket, whether it's green and says for water use only.
No. So last fall, we ran out of square buckets, which is our clean water.
Only for water.
They're only for clean water. So we lost our line on square buckets is essentially what happened. So we decided to use a color-coded system. And just because I have very little faith in humanity, I even wrote on the color-coded clean ones, I wrote for clean water only. And a day later, I watched somebody carry it into the outhouse and put it under the thing. And that was the point where I lost hope, really, is what happened. And these guys haven't let me forget it.
So we determined that color coding not a successful way. So, but yeah, we have
the manure very, very successful. You have no smell at all, unless you walk in right after the guy just left the deposit. But smells much cleaner than a normal outhouse. They're way cleaner than a normal outhouse would be. Much more pleasant to use.
Yeah, great. We harp on cleanliness around here with the outhouses. We don't want it to be, if it's poorly managed, it gets gross. So we tend to manage everything really well here, and as a result, we have a super.
And the tomatoes that come out of those things.
We have a fantastic system that works really well and completely scales. That if we had 50 people show up here to spend a week, it would totally work. And I couldn't say that for like a plumbed septic system.
Yeah, and it's honestly one of the easiest things in the world, too, because it's usually an every other day thing. You empty out the bucket and you put a clean bucket in. It doesn't get gross because nobody's going to want to sit down on a full bucket and you go, no.
Yeah,
I don't want to sit on a full bucket.
We have a lot of mature older students here, and I like to explain it the first day that it's sort of like changing a kid's diaper. When you clean the buckets, you know what you're in for.
Yeah.
After your kid's a couple of months old, you can do it in about 10 seconds.
When it's really cold, we warm our hands over by the compost pile and
all the steam coming out. Oh yeah.
We can. There's a book out there, and a lot of guys do this where they'll run copper plumbing pipe through, and that's their water heater.
Yeah.
And those beefsteak tomatoes, boy, I'll tell you what. Yeah. I mean, the
cucumbers,
beefiest beefsteaks.
Yeah. Well,
so
on that note,
stellar sea lions. This is just sort of a wrap up for this is as I mentioned earlier, we're at the halfway point and things are starting to get a little loopy. So last night on the drive home from our
mainly Mexican.
Yeah, from our Taco Tuesday evening. Tim and I are having a conversation about communicating about the work that we do with people that haven't experienced it, and how do you really how do you explain to them the realities of what you're doing? Kind of what we're talking about today, the romance versus.
It was a good it was good, serious conversation
for about 5 minutes, and then Tim said a phrase that now I'll never trust again, which is less role play. And so the next words out of his mouth are, "You are a New Jersey single mother buying a coffee in Starbucks, and I'm a Steller sea lion." And I started to play along with it, and then Tim just started making the noises of a sea lion. And I used to work towing. I've almost hit moose and deer on the road. I've never been more afraid for my life in a car than I was last night, because I was laughing so hard I thought we were going to drive off the road. It was yeah. So we're at the midway point.
Can you make that
essentially
sea lion noise for us, please?
I was just baiting him. And I was like, yeah, and I let it go just long enough to. I let it go.
Did you catch that? You definitely explicit.
I let it go just long enough where I was like, okay, yeah, well, let's pretend and we'll role play. And so you'll be this single mother who doesn't really know much about bushcraft, and I'll be a Steller sea lion. So, tell me which is a massively large sea lion that lives off the coast of Alaska. But anyway, so it's like, start to tell me about, your problems and how you view, like, outdoor living. And
from the other perspective, I'm having a real conversation with the man that's taught me most of what I know, and then all of a sudden, sound.
Well, you just start like let's role play.
Do we have to do this
again? Do it again. I have to live it.
Use it all.
Oh man, I really hope this barista doesn't mess up my coffee order. and then I almost killed the entire staff of Jack Mountain in one fell swoop.
It was pretty funny. Pretty funny. Anyway,
good point to wrap up.
Yeah,
I think so.
Thank you very much. Anthony and Jeremy for being out here. Thanks for sharing your insights.
I want to thank the Steller Sea Lion for his guest appearance.
Number 2.
I'd like to thank the Academy, but most of all, it's the fans.
Yeah.
So if you found this podcast to be useful or interesting, please leave us a review, and we will hit you back with another one real soon. Take care, and thanks for listening. You have been listening to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. For more information on our professional wilderness guide training programs that are college accredited and GI Bill approved, visit us on the web at jackmtn.com.